Hi there. We're going to get started. We have a small crowd. I'm just going to do a quick inventory of the room. How many people here are with IBM or an IBM business partner? Okay. Was that almost everybody? How many people are from a customer or a potential client of IBM?
They're not going to raise their hand.
Move up front.
No. I do mean that seriously. Just because because I'm looking for people that are in industry in terms of their world. So we have people from a client here, or industry, or something like that. I just want to know because I want to know how to tell the story. No?
I don't think so.
Nobody? Okay.
So you can be blatantly honest now.
Yeah. Yes, we can be honest.
So I can get the heckling questions from the back room. Okay, so I do think it's appropriate that the team did have me go right before the beer. We thought about adjusting our Internet of Things demonstration to actually be sensing whether or not someone is drinking too much. That will be a demo that we do for the IBM Insight Conference in Vegas. We'll have that running in time for that show. We should put that on our to-do list.
Okay.
You know, what's funny about this space, thanks for coming, is we talk about predictive maintenance and quality. But when you hear about that term, it's important, first of all, to level set on why we're having this conversation. And we're having this conversation because we're in interesting crossroads associated with what's going on with the computer industry today and the sector of now having everything talk. And I'm going to tell a little story about that to help you gain perspective on that. When I was a kid, I used to trick or treat. I'm sure many of you used to trick or treat, and we had this agreement in my family that for every piece of candy that we ate after we went out trick or treating, we could eat as much candy as we wanted, but we had to brush our teeth for 30 seconds for each piece of candy we ate. And my dad had a timer he would use to do that. Now, my dad's not with us anymore. He'd be very excited about this article I have in Popular Science right here that talks about the convergence of analytics, big data, and the whole world of the Internet of Things. This is the toothbrush that would like to have a word with you. Oral-B now has a toothbrush that has Bluetooth connectivity, and it has the ability to connect to your smartphone and give you real-time feedback on your brushing. You'll know if you're brushing too hard, if you've brushed long enough, and even if your brushing habits have improved over time. We're entering a world where every single thing that we do is radically impacted by the fact that we can put computers and sensors on everything. I'm a big grilling guy. 3 pages later, I've got a grill here that I'm going to put on my Father's Day list. This grill has sensors on it that use lasers to look at the temperature of your steak and actually do real-time adjustments based upon the recipe that you beam to the grill before you get started. No, it doesn't flip that over. That's an add-on that you have to get if you buy a robot. And then if I flip over a couple more, here is the Decode Your Air Quality sensors. These are available today. They're about $45. You can buy them off Amazon. These cube sensors decode your air quality, and they sense things like the level of pollen in your air, the level of humidity, the rolling temperature, and they can be integrated in with smart furnaces to dynamically change the amount of airflow going in your house based upon the conditions going on. Everything's talking. Everything is talking. And the real question we have to ask ourselves in this changing industry is, if everything's talking, are we listening? What kinds of things are talking in our clients' worlds today? And we're going to do a little bit of a talk back and forth here and show you a view of what this new world looks like as we start to take advantage of data coming off of sensors. So what are the kinds of things, if we say who or what is talking, what kind of things are we seeing that are talking in the industry? Well, naturally, we already talked about the fact that we're getting to the point where I've even got toothbrushes that are talking. Okay, so consumer products are now generating data that our clients and we can help tap into to gain new insights. But there's a lot of other things that can be speaking as well. We've had the idea of fleet-based analytics for things like trucks, beaming off information associated with how fast they're driving, how much the brakes are being applied. Anything associated with fleets are new sources of data. We can apply lots of interesting things there, especially if they're giving us messages like, I'm about to break down, or I'm about to run out of gas, or I'm going to be late, so your factory's going to go down. We also can have, for example, plants and equipment. So here's a little smokestack factory. This one's very close to my heart right now, because when I think about plant and equipment, I think about a project I'm working on for a large semiconductor company, and they're having us integrate to their HVAC equipment. We're taking data off of their air conditioners to predict whether or not they're going to have a failure, and specifically what their energy consumption is based upon the kind of chips they're making at the fab. So plants and equipment can be talking, and frankly, just at a raw level, we can be looking at things like the energy grid, so the energy systems that we use on a daily basis. And whether you're a consumer that's thinking about putting in that new battery pack for your house that's built by Tesla, or you're a large government entity looking at grid information, all of these different kinds of things can talk. And the real question is, as we delve into this, is if all these things are talking, do we have some ability to listen whatsoever? The reality is as you delve into something like this, what you find is these don't talk in the clean ways that we in the IT organization have gotten used to. They don't very nicely say something like, well, it's in a nice column format, you have a perfect star schema in your database environment. That's just not how the data works in these kinds of environments. Rather, they're talking in custom machine language. PLCs, start to talk in approaches that most of us in the data world haven't thought about. Rob, so tell me a little bit about the ways that we can go about connecting to these underlying systems and leveraging key information from the systems that are talking in our industries today.
Sure, Rob. Thanks. So one of the ways that we do that today, maybe I'll stand up for a minute so you guys can see me, is by creating what we refer to as a gateway. So in particular with the industrial use cases, a lot of times we want to be able to tap directly into that line or that bus, but because of regulations, because of their business processes, they don't want us to do that. So in effect, what we'll do is that we'll put a gateway, we'll put a device that's in that area, and then we'll use that as our connectivity back into the cloud. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you, as part of this ongoing conversation, how we've done that for a simple use case here. What I have in my hand is a battery-powered computer right now. So some of you may have seen this out in the hall, me fiddling with it earlier. I am a psychology major by education, so fiddling with wires and hardware is a relatively new domain for me. So hopefully this works here in a second. But what we have in this particular device is a flow meter, very similar to what the type of instrumentation that you would see within this industrial chiller in one of those customers that Rob was mentioning. Along with that, we have a temperature sensor as well as a vibration sensor. And I actually didn't have a vibration sensor handy, so I used a photoresistor, but for all intents and purposes, it should do the same thing. Now this device here, this gateway, is in essence a computer. This is a Raspberry Pi device, if anybody's familiar with them. You can buy them on Amazon for maybe 30 bucks for a kit. You want to spend a little more, you get a handful of sensors and some ways to instrument those things. So for our example here today, we are using a piece of IBM technology, which we often will refer to as part of the overall IoT Foundations platform. That piece of software is called Node-RED. It's built on top of the Node ecosystem, which some people in the product development space may be familiar with. It's a JavaScript engine. Actually, for those of you who use the Chrome browser, it is based on the JavaScript engine that's in the Chrome browser. We ripped that out and have extended that, and have created a graphical workspace here, which you can use to actually connect to your devices. So in the case here, you can see that I've sampled my device. I'm saying I'm going to take measurements. If I actually drill into that, you can see I have an interval that I've set to say I'm going to pull measurements from this device once a second, once every 5 seconds. It's really up to you to determine how quickly you want to bring that information. Once we push that information back into the cloud, we have some ability to create moving averages with that and give you some more what I would refer to as profile information. So just to show you guys that this is kind of working here, I'm going to toggle over to my message dashboard. You can see sort of the debug output. So right now, our temperature reading, vibration, and the flow meter, as you saw, doesn't really have anything connected to it. Now, as far as an endpoint goes, we have the ability to connect to multiple systems. And as Rob mentioned, there's lots of different protocols out there. One of the ones that we're seeing is more prevalent now, and one that IBM is starting to put a lot of energy behind, is MQTT. And you'll see that within the IoT foundations. You'll see that within our purpose-built connectivity solution called MessageSite. And this same technology is built into the PMQ platform that we are going to be showing a little more of here in a second. So just to show you these messages propagating back up, you can see here, this is just a little shot of the MessageSite console here. Now, Rob, I don't know if you maybe want to mention a little bit about sort of that fan-in pattern and why we'd want to do this with lots of devices.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the whole idea behind this concept is we've got a lot of different things that are talking in different ways. And we need to be able to support a distributed enterprise that's gathering data from a lot of different places. You know, for example, if you're an organization that has, 400 plants scattered around the world, what you've got to be able to do is get information from those things and really pass it on to the kinds of systems that really need to listen. So who might be listening to these underlying systems? Well, some of the people may be people out in the field. These people might be maintenance mechanics. They might be people that are very concerned about being able to see specifics about something running in their platform. But we're also seeing a real interest in in building out operational control centers, operations centers that operate sort of as a command and control system across all the infrastructure inside the business. And that's why we see this important capability of being able to pull all this information into a common area in the cloud. You know, I think the pretty pictures here are great, but what I want to see is, I want to see if your little device here works.
All right, so let's give it a shot. So now what you're seeing up here on the board, this is actually a live chart of the predictive maintenance and quality platform. We refer to this internally as the dancing charts. But right now I just have two measurements from this particular device that are up there. Now, I apologize that this might be a little loud, and I was looking for a way to kind of push. Originally I was going to build a little fish tank type pump through here, but I thought that might get messy. So instead I grabbed one of my mattress pumps at home for my kids have sleepovers. So let's just see here if we can push some data through, push some flow through. There we go. Now let me scroll down. I will do this with two hands. So you can see now we're pushing through, several gallons per minute of fluid volume through. Temperature looks like it's kind of gone up a little bit, or it's flaked a little bit, maybe from the heat of the output. I'll move that away, turn that off, and we can see now that the flow itself starts dropping back to the baseline of 1. So this is real. This is not smoke and mirrors. This is predictive maintenance and quality showing connectivity to the sensors.
So when we deal with connectivity, that's really the first step in the process. If we can bridge the gap between all the things that are talking in our enterprise, we now have the ability to look at what kinds of things are going on in the business. However, the reality is a lot of those capabilities have been around for a long time. You walk into any manufacturing plant today, you go to a stamping press, you'll actually see the lights going on and off of these particular systems, giving you temperature warnings. So it's not really good enough to be able to just go through and connect to this underlying information. We have to have some capability to analyze it and provide perspectives that are relevant to these people that have to make decisions on an ongoing basis. So when we do this analysis, as you've been through this whole forum today, you would have heard about many of the technologies and techniques that IBM offers to deal with this. So first of all, we can leverage advanced analytics in the form of creating predictive and advanced analytics models that take all the data from the sensors or other systems that are storing information in your enterprise, and we can actually build up perspectives of what kinds of things are normal and what kinds of things are not normal. Building models is good, but that's not for the faint of heart. We have to be able to share information in visualizations that make sense to real people. And so we've built leading edge visualization capabilities that allow us to look at data in ways that make sense, and in ways that are dynamic and appropriate to the skill sets of the particular people involved. So whether that's looking at traditional charts and pie graphs, whether it's looking at industry-specific control graphs, or it's dealing with things like geographic perspectives across entire geographies, and looking for places where there are hot spots. Visualization allows us to bridge the gap and show things to people. And then finally, we have to actually enable these organizations to take preventative action based upon what the system is telling them. And so that's where we leverage our optimization technologies to actually go through and weigh the balances between where there are great returns and the costs of potential downtime, and look for ways that they can intervene. Bringing all these things together, again, each one of these different pieces is something that's been around for a long time. You probably in your organization have people that are leveraging Cognos or Tableau. Maybe you have people that are experts in mathematical optimization and using R or a Cplex. But the problem with that, and Rob, this is the real challenge that I pose to you, it's great that we have all these capabilities, but it seems to me like this is going to take a really long time to try to do. What's IBM doing with its PMQ solution to make this a much easier process to adopt in our enterprises?
I'm glad you asked that, Rob, because we are doing a lot for that. And with the predictive maintenance and quality platform, what we have is industry knowledge and industry content that has been included within the overall platform from a capabilities perspective. When you purchase PMQ, you are not buying individual components like Cognos, like SPSS, like Integration Bus. You are getting a framework and you're getting an infrastructure that has been built, that has been field tested, and that has, is going to accelerate the value of you being able to roll out this type of solution. So what I'm going to show you here is a little bit to kind of just fill in some of the gaps with the whiteboard that Rob has been drawing here, and we're going to talk a bit about sort of the connectivity up and show you a little bit of some of the custom content that we include. Now the big thing to consider here, as Rob mentioned, is that much of the challenge with implementing these types of solutions in an IT organization comes down to the plumbing. Nobody really wants to talk about the plumbing. It's not sexy, it's not interesting, it's not a visual dashboard, but getting the plumbing right can be the make or break of a successful project. Now, with the predictive maintenance and quality platform, we have given you all of these mechanisms so that you are not starting from scratch. If you look here, you can see all of the different use cases that we've already provided integration technologies for around analyzing warranty, inspection information, integration with your enterprise asset management system. We have a built-in application to do that for Maximo today. If you would like to integrate with a non-Maximo EAP system like SAP or a third party, you have the mechanisms, you have the scaffolding for doing that. And that should not be trivialized because a lot of time and energy has gone in from our field resources to be able to make this happen with our customers. And what you're seeing is that we've been able to take those sort of best practices from industry, what we've seen in the field, and be able to roll that into the content of the solution.
So coming to the table then with underlying technologies of message structures, database connectivity, capabilities to actually move data and transform it inside the enterprise in a scalable and reliable way for issues like warranty analytics, inspection analytics, energy management, quality management, all of this kind of things out of the box. So instead of having to go through a whole design project of how I do this, I have a platform with pre-configured capabilities in that. Have you done anything beyond just the world of the data and the messaging areas? What about the world of the advanced analytics? Because a lot of us, we don't have hosts of data scientists, sitting around waiting for work. How are we closing that gap with the PMQ solution?
Yeah, absolutely, Rob. So what we have within our predictive analytics capability is a series of pre-built models and what we refer to as modular streams. So these are, for all intents and purposes, PMQ artifacts or analytic assets that you can use to jumpstart your processes. Now, what we're showing here, in this particular case, I wanted to keep things relatively simple since we're all not data scientists here, but you can see that we're taking in data from our files in this case, or we're pulling from a table. We've generated a simple model from that, and we have deployed this model into our PMQ infrastructure. Now the beauty of this here is that this health score model can now take in those variables and those values from these sensor measurements and tell us more whether or not a device is out of control. That we may know that, okay, so the machine's high. So what? The health score and being able to apply these predictive analytics techniques to the data now gives us the ability to go in and combine that and figure out, all right, what is really an appropriate action should I take? I see that my flow is low, my temperature is high, how healthy is my device?
So I've got data coming from my underlying systems. We connect through it. We build up predictive models. Well, I'm sort of stuck here. Are you suggesting that our maintenance supervisors are going to open up this kind of an interface to work with this health score you're talking about?
They would not be doing that.
Oh, okay.
So let's toggle back over to our dashboard, which we showed here with our sensor readings. So again, PMQ, as far as being able to ingest this data from the source, we can do that. What we can also do is show you what that output is of the application. And for the purposes of our demo today, we're really just showing this through a graphical interface. But really what you would see is actions that would be propagated down to individuals, to their handheld devices, to a dashboard, to a tablet that they might be using to walk the plant floor. So what we're going to do here is open up this dashboard, and we're just going to take a quick moment here and extend this. And you can see when we extend this, oh, sorry, I'm losing a little bit of my real estate. Bear with me. I'm working at a low resolution. We're going to add a new chart to our table here. And now this particular chart, what you can see here is we've got just this one demo asset that I've created. In your organization, you may have, different geographic locations with different capital assets or different manufacturing processes. So you have the ability as a consumer of this output to subscribe to what's the relevant information for you, what's the relevant information for your job. We're going to drill in here into the flow meter that I built, that we have running here on the desk. Now you can see I mentioned this a little bit earlier. We talk about profiles. So it's not really enough just to get the information from the sensors. Right? We want to be able to take that information and add some contextual value to that. We want to understand how many times has our temperature been over the limit. How's that been for the history of my device? And with that, we want to be able to enrich this data with information about the recommendations that we're giving back. How many alarms have been fired? And what's the overall health of my device? So let's go ahead and add our health score here. Save our charts. I can find the checkbox. Let's scroll back down and see how we're doing. So we're relatively healthy at the moment. Our temperature is within our limits. Even though our flow is kind of low, I sort of forced a small value there so that we weren't setting lots of alarms into the system.
We got to be able to mess with this system a little bit.
Okay, I think let's try that. So this is my first official IBM demo where I brought a blowtorch in. I don't have the actual torch on the end of it, but we'll just generate a little bit of heat here. So what I want you to do is take a look at the temperature at the top here. Let's see what happens as I kind of jack this up here. All right.
There we go.
Okay, so we're going pretty high. And now the nice thing about this little temperature thermistor or whatever it is, it's going to take a little bit of time to cool back down. Now let's look at our sensor value here, 27. And if I was a little quicker with my two hands, you would have been able to see that change in lockstep as the temperature went up on the device.
So what we've got then is an end-to-end platform that deals with the connectivity. We have the capabilities to consume all the messages coming off of all the devices in our environment. And we've built up the intelligence to actually push them through pre-built predictive models focused on use cases that we all deal with every day. Whether we're managing a manufacturing plant, a fleet of vehicles, we're managing an energy grid. We have all this information, and instead of having to call a big group of analysts, what we can now do is provide real-time views of the kinds of issues that are appropriate for that field person to know when they're going to have a problem. Let's ask one more question, Rob, and that's this operations center area. If I'm in the operations center, my job is to be looking at a little bigger picture point of view. How can I gain a picture across all the assets that are in my environment and look at the health of my infrastructure over time so that I can adjust my business processes on an ongoing basis?
Absolutely, Rob. So, along with that pre-built content that includes the integration, the plumbing, the industry-specific, the models, we also include a whole series of dashboards and reports that can be used to visualize your data, understand how your assets are performing, and just get a general sense of your overall operations. So here's just a quick look at a high level of some of those different charts. You can see that they mirror some of the content that we showed within the integration layer. What we're going to do is we're going to drill into a little bit of some of the details of some of these reports just to show you a bit of kind of how we're capturing that information. So what you can see here, I've got for today's date, my flow meter, the temperature. Now just to save us a little bit of time, I ran this report right before we walked in after Rob and I did our dry run earlier. But you can see here we can get some standard charting which you would normally see within the industrial space. Now in this particular case here, we have our our temperature chart that's been binned into histograms. Now, from the chart, it might be a little difficult to see. Most of our readings are centered or clustered around room temperature, maybe slightly above with me fiddling with it all afternoon. But what you can see here also is that we have a couple outliers, and those outliers occur when we put the butane torch on the thermal sensor here, or this might be a way for you to just visually see with your, as the industrial use case that Rob mentioned, with your chiller, how it's operating and where the anomalies are.
Before you move past that, it reminds me of a project that we were involved in a mining organization, and they really presumed that they knew that temperature was important, that during the year, that if the water got cold, their mill would operate very poorly. But the reality is as they found that the water temperature was completely varied depending on where they were getting the water. And when we actually implemented PMQ into this client, what they discovered was by watching and monitoring charts like this, they were actually able to spot a change in their business process that was occurring that the operations management didn't know about. While most of the time they were pulling water from an outside lake to pump through their mill, anytime it started to get really cold, they would actually pump the water from underground. And that's how they dealt with making sure the water wasn't frozen. Well, it turned out then that their presumption that there was a direct relationship between the temperature of the outside and the productivity of the mill, it turned out that we were able to use PMQ to spot a change in the business process based upon this management information that radically improved their performance of their mill.
Absolutely. So we can provide just that basic information in the terms of overall profile information. So we can see some of that directly right here. How has my device been performing? What are its min, its maxes, its averages? What's the last value that I read? How's it been doing on this day? How is it over the lifetime of its device? And in addition to that, we can really drill into those individual readings if we'd like to see. Now in this particular case, I just wanted to plot the temperature curve from what we saw earlier. You can see, again, fairly stable, but once we hit that temperature sensor with the blowtorch, immediately that value goes up and we start to see that decay as things go.
Well, before we move on from this, this whole idea of control limits in the manufacturing industrial sector, we're all very familiar with. Do our clients have to come to us solely with their predefined information, or can we help them?
They do not. Within the PMQ platform, we have the capabilities to help determine what are your top predictors of failure, or what are your top predictors of uptime, if you want to look at it in a positive way, as well as helping you understand really what your upper control limits and lower control limits should be. We have the capabilities within the platform through the mining algorithms and the workbench, as well as through the integration layer to talk to those machines and understand really what is the appropriate operating characteristics for that particular device and that particular machine.
It's applications like this, understanding the control limits that apply in specific industrial processes, that IBM can really partner with our clients to help you gain an understanding of. So we can bring industry expertise in the energy sector, in manufacturing, in automotive, in aerospace, in many other sectors. We can bring those folks on site who have experience as practitioners in that industry and help you understand what kind of thresholds are appropriate to set and what kinds of visualizations will help the people on the ground do their jobs on a regular basis. Rob, thanks for walking us through this whole view of the PMQ platform. As all of you have seen this, and we think back to this idea of a boy brushing his teeth, trying to deal with whether or not he's going to get cavities, is his dad managing with a platform like this. I'm really glad that I didn't grow up in that era where my dad had that dashboard. I don't need to think about that with my daughter. The key thing, though, is that where we're seeing most clients focus on these kinds of issues is driving what we call the predictive maintenance and quality value proposition. And that's really focused on helping our clients increase their operating margins. For organizations in mature industries, as well as companies that have been driving the same kinds of products for a long time, the fact is that typically organizations see diminishing returns. And it's vital that they find ways to increase the performance or efficiency of their particular business. And this is where PMQ can dramatically increase business performance by increasing operational efficiency, by reducing downtime, by increasing uptime, and increasing the efficiency of the way that you use your resources. But this isn't where we stop. At IBM, what we do is we use this start point as the beginning of a journey that we take you on. You'll notice that we talk about all these sources of information. IBM is committed to helping our clients look at new ways to not only consume information to do a better job, but also enable you to create a data service that can mean something for somebody else. So imagine now that the toothbrush company is going through and generating that data and is selling it back to dentists. What can you do with the information that lives in your environment? How can you create a new business that's more about the value that you and the insight that you have about the people using your products than the products themselves? This is the kind of work that we're doing with clients like Whirlpool, who are not only putting sensors to actually keep and optimize the performance of the washer dryers that they're putting out into the field, but importantly, they've realized that they can take those sensors, generate data services, and sell that information back to, say, Procter & Gamble, so that they can know when someone's going to be dropping, going to be going low on laundry detergent.
Absolutely. Just to interject there, Rob. So as we see here on the screen where we're subscribing to that information, this is not just restricted to those people within your organization. As Rob is saying, if you so choose, if you want to be able to publish the analytics and the information that's within the PMQ platform, you can think outside of the organization and be able to provide this information directly to your customers through feeds as well.
Okay. So we want to pause here and see if there's any questions. Naturally, we'd all like to probably play with the blowtorch, but that's always more fun, and I encourage you to come back and play with the blowtorch after you get a cocktail, because there's nothing better than blowtorches with booze. So, and at IBM, that's how we roll. So anyway, we'd like to pause at this point and see if people have any questions, and we even take questions from the peanut gallery. Anyone? Anyone? Yeah?
Who do we compete with here? Who else do we run into?
What other kinds of people do this? So there's solutions that are coming out from a lot of different areas. So you start to see industry-specific players going after this. For example, we're actually working with a lot of organizations that are industry domain experts interested in building their own predictive maintenance platforms for industries. Okay? There are other large platform environments like GE that goes through and does things like this. But the difference between the approach that, say, somebody like a GE has versus something like what IBM has is this whole ability to not only integrate to the underlying data, but actually we're the only provider that can help you go beyond this operational efficiency play to actually turn your data into its own business. We're uniquely good with that based upon our whole end-to-end capabilities in the cloud. Yes, question.
So I cover John Deere down in Moline, and they have a group they call Information Solutions Group that is doing a lot of things like this. It's basically their effort to monetize their data.
Absolutely.
So my question is, some of the things, and we're working through this, right? But some of the things that we come up against when we're calling on ISG from an IM perspective is, hey, isn't IBM a competitor in this space, right? So
right.
Can you speak to, obviously a lot of the targets you're working on, I would think some of them might, be a little concerned that we're trying to achieve.
On the contrary, what we're really trying to do is build up an ecosystem.
No, I understand that, but
No, I mean,
getting that kind of
case in point, we're working with Intel right now, who manufactures a gateway for fan-in connectivity. And our whole strategy with them is we actually want to turn them into what we call an ASL. We want them to build their own PMQ platform on our stack. So what we need to go to John Deere with is very similar to how we approached Caterpillar about 7 years ago, which was we have the expertise on the technology and we have the most scalable infrastructure to do this. You have the industry expertise. Why build this from scratch? Why don't we give you this environment, and we'll even give you a sales vehicle to help you sell it. You can drop your data service right into Bluemix, and it can be picked up by Monsanto tomorrow and pulled into their environment. And we'll even make that connection for them. So part of this whole thing is because at IBM, we have this ability to build this ecosystem. We can go have meetings across those industry barriers. And that's why the PMQ team has industry experts to broker those relationships across the value chain. And that's how I have that conversation. Other questions, comments? No heckling from the peanut gallery? Come on. No? Okay, well then, we're standing in
Adjourned?
between
Us
the
and drinks,
beer,
right?
so
Yeah.
we're adjourned at this point. Thank you.